At the White House today, President Obama plans a news conference and important talks on the budget. All of this as that latest CBS News New York Times poll, which you just mentioned, shows his job approval rating is at 47%. That's down a point from earlier this month. CBS News senior White House correspondent Bill Plante has more on those numbers for us this morning. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Erica. Well, the numbers are not very comforting to a president running for re-election because they suggest that whatever happens between now and Election Day, the economy is going to remain President Obama's biggest problem. Just 39% approve of the president's handling of the economy, but that is up 2 percentage points since our June 8th poll. And a majority in our survey don't blame President Obama for the state of the economy. They blame a combination of the Bush administration and Wall Street. But when asked the question to which campaign strategists pay the most attention, is the country on the right direction or the wrong track, 63% said we're on the wrong track. The economy and jobs were very much on the president's mind as he visited an Alcoa aluminum factory in Iowa. This plant makes alloys for aerospace and automotive products and also manufactures aircraft wings. The wings of Air Force One were made here. Here, things are looking up, but the president conceded that that doesn't matter much to Americans still out of work.
Here at this plant, the workers that were laid off during the darkest days of the recession have all been hired back. But, you know, for a lot of Americans, those numbers don't matter much if they're still out of work or if they have a job that doesn't pay enough to make the mortgage or pay the bills.
The manufacturing sector is one of the few bright spots in the economy. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says manufacturing jobs are up to almost 12 million. That's a 1.4% increase from last year. But with the overall unemployment rate stuck above 9%, the president is forced to acknowledge wherever he goes that things aren't good enough.
So we've got more work to do. And that work's going to take some time. The problems that we developed didn't happen overnight. We're not going to solve them overnight either. But we will solve them.
Now, the president is going to hold his first news conference in 3 months later today, and when he does, look for him to acknowledge and to insist that the sacrifices necessary to make a deal on the budget can't come from just the middle class, that they have to be shared equally. That, of course, is code for changing the tax rates on the wealthy, among other things. Erica?
We'll be looking for that a little later today. Bill, thanks. Jen, joining us this morning from Washington, Michael Crowley, who's Time Magazine's Deputy Washington Bureau Chief. Good to have you with us this morning. Bill laid out plenty of reasons there. We have this new poll out this morning. Traditionally, though, an incumbent can be pretty tough to beat. Is that going to be the case in 2012?
Well, an incumbent is tough to beat traditionally, you're right, but when the economy is in this sort of condition, it gets a lot harder. With unemployment over 8% in the modern era, it's very hard for a president to get reelected. And I think that really, even though voters are not blaming Barack Obama for the economic crash, it would appear from your poll, they do not like his handling of the economy, and I really think that's going to be the key to this election. So
that will be the key, and that's obviously something that Republicans are going to take full advantage of. But when you look at the race there, as we saw earlier, 67% of Republicans say they're not enthusiastic about the candidates they have. Is there a strong contender at this point?
Well, you know, the bad news for the president in this situation is that voters are dissatisfied with his handling the economy. The good news is that I think the candidates the White House really fears are not catching on with Republicans. I think that White House strategists are concerned about former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney, former ambassador to China John Huntsman. Feel like those are candidates who could appeal to the middle in a general election and really threaten the president. Those candidates are not really catching on, particularly Huntsman, who's barely registering in the polls. Republican voters, you know, they're excited about Sarah Palin, Michelle Bachmann, but I don't think the White House really thinks that those candidates can beat them in November. So that's some good news in this dynamic for Obama.
It's interesting because it's almost like or not even almost, there are really two races here. There's, of course, the race among Republicans for the nomination, which, as you're pointing out, very different criteria, very different base, essentially, than the person who ultimately wins and moves on to the general election.
That's right. It's particularly true right now, I think, because the Tea Party base of the Republican Party is really expecting some pretty tough talk, some red meat that does come back to haunt a candidate in the general election. So Michelle Bachmann has the luxury of really having a lot of appeal to that crowd because she's known for some outrageous statements, some pretty fiery rhetoric. Someone like Romney, on the other hand, I think is trying to chart a more middle course. And the question is, can he get the nomination without going so far to the right that it would become a problem for him in a general election? Sort of problem that Hillary Clinton faced in 2008 when she tried to avoid going too far to the left. For Democrats, ultimately Obama outflanked her on the left.
Michael Crowley, great to have your insight. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.